VCY America presents Crosstalk, a nationwide call-in program discussing issues that have an effect on our families, our communities, our churches, our nation, and our world. Crosstalk, an opportunity for you to voice your concerns for biblical principles. And now live by satellite and around the world on the internet at vcyamerica.org. Here is today's Crosstalk.
Thank you for joining us on Crosstalk, and it is a Friday News Roundup and comment today. We're so grateful for you joining us each and every day for Crosstalk. Grateful for our team here at VCY America. Thank you, Sandy, for all the many stories here for the program today. Thanks to Molly on the phones on the other side of the glass here, and thanks to Dennis in our control room today and our team here at VCY America. I just want to begin with a verse of Scripture from Psalm chapter 20, verse 7. Some trust in chariots and some in horses, but listen to this, friends, but we will remember the name of the Lord our God. And friends, when times are tough as they are in the world today, and there's chaos and war and turmoil that is taking place, stop, pause, and like the psalmist said, but we will remember the name of the Lord our God. Keep your trust in Him and keep your eyes ever looking upward, but with knees bent in prayer as well. Well, friends, earlier this week, of course, Sunday, a dramatic rescue of a member of the military, and President Trump, and I'm quoting now from Breitbart, they covered the story. Donald Trump said God was watching us. This was a historic rescue operation in Iran. On Monday, he detailed the operation. He kicked off the press conference detailing the elite rescue operation taking place over the weekend. He described it as one of the most challenging and complex rescue missions in the history of U.S. special operations. He described the conditions survived by the heroic F-15 weapon system officer, one of two crew members in this Strike Eagle that was shot down over Iran. Both ejected. The pilot was recovered hours later, but the second crew member remained missing. He had evaded capture on the ground in Iran for almost 48 hours. Despite being injured, he scaled cliff faces, bleeding rather profusely, treating his own wounds, and contacted American forces to transmit his location. They have a very sophisticated beeper-type apparatus that is on them at all times, and this one really, really is amazing. Saved his life, the president said. We immediately mobilized a massive operation to retrieve him from the mountain holdout. The rescue mission involved 155 aircraft, including 4 bombers, 64 fighters, 48 refueling tankers, 13 rescue aircraft, and more, the president said. I know there was some international opposition. All that for one person? And the response was, that means that you don't know what it means to be an American. The Gateway pundit also points out that the CIA used a futuristic tool called Ghost Murmur to locate and rescue the missing fighter pilot. The missing pilot was rescued early Sunday morning, local time. In an incredible act of valor, this seriously wounded pilot evaded capture, scaled the 7,000-foot mountain ridge in southern Iran, hiding out in a crevice. According to the New York Post, this futuristic tool detected the missing fighter's heartbeat. Ghost Murmur pairs long-range quantum magnetometry sensors with AI to find human heartbeats, the New York Post reported. Well, the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, also spoke to the issue of the rescue and would like to just share with you what Pete Hegseth had to say.
One downed airman evaded capture for more than a day, scaling rugged ridges while hunted by the enemy. When he was finally able to activate his emergency transponder, his first message was simple, and it was powerful. He sent a message, God is good. In that moment of isolation and danger, his faith and fighting spirit shone through. You see, shot down on a Friday, Good Friday, hidden in a cave, a crevice, all of Saturday, and rescued on Sunday. Flown out of Iran as the sun was rising on Easter Sunday. A pilot reborn, all home and accounted for, a nation rejoicing. God is good.
You know, I'm so thankful for Secretary of War Pete Hegseth and is constantly pointing to things like this. And again, I go back to Psalm 27, 20 verse 7, that is, some trust in chariots, some in horses, but we will remember the name of the Lord our God. Washington Times reporting a U.S.-Israeli airstrike Monday killed the leader of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. That's their intelligence branch. That's according to Israel's Minister of Defense. The Defense Minister Israel Katz confirmed that the Major General Majid Kadami had been a targeted strike in Iran on Monday night. He had been a key player for nearly 5 decades with the IRGC and was involved in attacks on Iranians, Americans, and also Israelis. JNS.org reporting that Israel's foreign ministry Monday welcomed what it described as a belated condemnation by UNISEF of Iran's recruitment of children into its military. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps has lowered the minimum age for participation in war support to just age 12. ConservativeDailyNews.com reporting that the Iranian Deputy Foreign Minister informed the world that Tehran would open the Strait of Hormuz in a limited capacity during an interview yesterday, but admitted in the interview that the Iranian regime had laid naval mines in the strait. These mines will have to be cleared after the conflict is resolved, which can be expensive and dangerous. Anybody who communicates with the Iranian authority has got to get permission to pass. And explained in an interview that the Iranian regime will have to guide vessels through the strait for this foreseeable future. Tehran told mediators that it would limit passage to only 12 ships per day. Iran plans to impose a transit toll of the ships going through, and friends were told that for all practical purposes that the movement of ships stopped and a huge backlog of ships waiting to cross. JustTheNews.com is reporting that President Trump slammed Iran last night, saying Iran is doing a very poor job, dishonorable, some would say, of allowing oil to go through the Strait of Hormuz. This is not the agreement we have, he posted on Truth Social. The president also warned Iran not to to charge oil tankers who are traveling through the strait, stating that if they're doing so, as reported, that they better stop now. WashingtonTimes.com reporting that British officials yesterday rejected the idea of Iran setting up a toll system for the Strait of Hormuz, arguing that commercial ships should be able to traverse the waterway freely and safely under international law. The British Defense Secretary John Healey told reporters that the UK and its allies want to see the strait reopened soon and that the creation of a toll system under which commercial vessels would pay a high price to safely travel through the waterway would set a dangerous precedent. JNS.org, America's military forces, ships, and aircraft will remain deployed in and around Iran until a real agreement is fully implemented, President Donald Trump has stated. Also, many of you know that the vice president had left yesterday, heading over to Pakistan, and he is going to helm the negotiations with the Iranians as just hours into this very shaky ceasefire that one could argue has been violated. Strait of Hormuz is reportedly closed again. Israel keeps striking Hezbollah targets in Lebanon. Both are key points in the upcoming talks, so the immediate cessation of airstrikes in Lebanon seems to be the most pressing. Israel reportedly announced it would engage in peace talks with Beirut and then drop some more bombs, townhall.com reports. And the Washington Times says a senior Iranian official says major parts of the 2-week ceasefire negotiated with President Trump must be implemented before deeper negotiations begin in Pakistan tomorrow. The demands from the Iranian parliament speaker underscored the tremendous nature of talks to end the war. 2 of the measures mutually agreed upon between the parties have yet to be implemented: ceasefire in Lebanon and the release of Iran's blocked assets prior to the commencement of negotiations. Well, the U.S. is not going to stop blocking assets while Iran is continuing in its defiance here. And We also understand that Lebanon was not part of the original ceasefire. However, Daily Caller is reporting Israel announced it would openly direct negotiations with Lebanon after this massive wave of strikes. The Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu issued a short statement saying that he had instructed his cabinet to allow the negotiations with Lebanon with the goal of establishing peace relations. That's according to Fox News. And New York Times reporting that President Trump's Board of Peace demanding that Hamas finalize an agreement to demilitarize Gaza by the end of this week. That's according to 4 diplomats briefed on the talks. If Gaza is demilitarized, Israeli forces would withdraw from much of the territory, they report. Troubling story here. WesternJournal.com, FBI Director Kash Patel announced the arrest Wednesday of a former employee of the United States Special Operations Command, known as SOCOM, for leaking classified material to a journalist. Patel posted on social media, quote, FBI and our partners have arrested a former SOCOM employee who supported our top-level military warfighters for allegedly transmitting classified information to a member of the media. Let this serve as a message to any would-be leakers. We're working these cases and we're making arrests. This FBI will not tolerate those who seek to betray our country and put Americans in harm's way. The individual, Courtney Williams of Wagram, North Carolina, was indicted by a federal grand jury in connection with the alleged transmission of classified national defense information to individuals not authorized to receive it, and that included a journalist. From truthpress.com, the federal government here moving to automatically register eligible men for the military draft, ending the long-standing requirement that they sign up on their own. This change is set to begin in December. Okay, also some comments here pertaining to NATO. This from the EpochTimes.com. The Trump administration's comments about NATO allies and threats to leave the alliance altogether are pushing European member states to look for alternative security arrangements, said the Spanish Foreign Minister, following the reluctance of European countries to send their navies to help open up the Strait of Hormuz, which Iran has blocked. President Trump has repeatedly criticized the alliance, as did the U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio in late March. Spain's foreign minister said the decision on whether Washington remains in NATO was entirely up to the president, but added that the president's remarks were making others in the alliance reconsider their positions. We must take our citizens' sanctuary and dissuasion into our own hands. To do so, the European Union should seek to form a pan-European army and integrate its defense industries, and also to create a digital single market and a capital markets union. Friends, keep in mind again what is being said, that they are talking about taking security into their hands and forming this pan-European army, and also this digital single market and digital markets union. Be interesting to see where that goes. There were some comments made by the NATO Secretary General to the media, specifically on CNN. We'll play some of those clips right after the break. You're listening to Crosstalk on VCY America.
Back to Genesis with Dr. John Morris, geologist and president of the Institute for Creation Research. Dr. Morris, what's the source of natural gas?
Chris, natural gas is a result of a variety of life processes. Even the digestion of your food produces methane gas. Methane gas is also found in volcanic eruptions and in meteorites, so it's evidently a chemical that can form under a variety of conditions. A new theory has been proposed that the huge deposits of methane gas are really the inorganic outgassing of the Earth's interior. These huge pockets of pure methane in many ways don't appear to be life gases with all the impurities that would be there. I lean to such a theory myself. God created this earth for man's good, and methane is a very good part of our existence. It's hard to know for sure, but it wouldn't surprise me from a back to Genesis perspective.
Thanks, Dr. Morris. For more information, you can find us on the web at www.icr.org.
You're listening to Crosstalk on VCY America with a reminder from Psalm 20, verse 7, some trust in chariots and some in horses, but we will remember the name of the Lord our God. Friends, I trust that's a prayer in your heart. Even as you see circumstances all around you, say, I'm going to remember the name of the Lord my God. Let's continue on here. We're just talking about NATO and the NATO Secretary General, Mark Rutte. He was in Washington, D.C. He met with President Trump, and things have been pretty tenuous between the United States and NATO. Some nations like Spain and France have not allowed their airspace to be used for any activity, in connection with Operation Epic Fury. And some have not wanted to deploy their naval forces to bring some stability to the Persian Gulf. And so President Trump is even been considering, should we be closing bases in countries that have abandoned us during Epic Fury? Well, Rutte described the discussions as honest that he had with the president, and he appeared on CNN and perhaps angered some liberals by saying that the world is safer thanks to President Donald Trump. He was asked that question point blank on CNN.
Is the world safer today than it was before the war was started?
Absolutely. Because, and this is thanks to President Trump's leadership, degrading these capabilities is really very important for your and my safety here in the U.S., in Europe, in the Middle East.
Had to degrade their abilities, and he commented further on that, as saying that the president had to act.
Run the risk that this would lead into the North Korea moment, where you talk so long that at a certain moment it's beyond the point where you can still get this done, because then they would get their hands on the nuclear capacity. Mm-hmm. And that is basically a big risk for Europe. It is existential for Israel. It is existential for the Middle East. So the whole world is safer by this president degrading those capabilities.
But there are a lot of
this is by many in Europe acknowledged, and they understand that continuing talking to get this done would have brought us potentially past that moment where we can still deal with it.
So you talked about the statement of NATO allied countries about the Strait of Hormuz, about trying to figure out a way forward. Here is the White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt when asked about the joint statement from the NATO governments about the Strait of Hormuz. Here's what she had to say.
I have a direct quote from the President of the United States on NATO, and I will share it with all of you. They were tested, and they failed.
Do you agree that NATO countries, some of them, were tested and failed?
Some of them, yes, but a large majority of European countries, and that's what we discussed today, have done what they promised before in a case like this, because they know that when it comes to NATO, it's there to protect the United States. Because the U.S. needs a secure Atlantic and a secure Arctic and a secure Europe to stay safe here, the U.S. mainland. But it is also there to make sure that, of course, Europe is safe, and to be this platform of power projection for the
United States. NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte on CNN. Well, Breitbart is reporting American multinational energy corporation Chevron is now importing an average of 250,000 barrels of Venezuelan crude oil per day into the United States, the BBC has reported. According to recent reports, Venezuela's monthly crude oil exports have once again surpassed 1 million barrels per day. For worthy news, the Pentagon is preparing to request approximately $4.5 billion in fiscal year 2027 to replenish its stockpile of Tomahawk cruise missiles, and highlighting growing pressure on U.S. military resources after sustained global operations. The Tomahawk missiles remain a cornerstone of U.S. strike capability, enabling precision attacks from long distances. However, with each missile costing roughly $2 million, rebuilding stockpiles represents a significant financial commitment. Defense officials say the funding request is part of a broader effort to restore America's munitions reserves and strengthen the defense industrial base after years of underinvestment and escalating geopolitical threats. From Axios, President Trump's 2027 budget proposal this year, and it suggests some changes to how the U.S. government operates. The proposal doesn't, it's very, very voluminous, but just a couple items from this. It does include a $52 million cut to TSA in order to begin privatizing the agency and reduce cost. Some airports would be required to enroll in the Screening Partnership Program, where TSA pays for private screeners to work at designated airports. It also would proposing $1.5 trillion for the military. That's a 44% increase over the amount appropriated for 2026. The Defense Department also looks to fund the Golden Dome missile defense system, now new shipbuilding also, and AI next-gen weapons. It proposes $73 billion in overall spending cuts compared to 2026. Let's see, $18.8 billion in discretionary spending for NASA. That's a 23% decrease from 2026. But they seek to put astronauts on the moon by 2028 and also want to make some changes to the Mars sample return mission because they're seeking to achieve human missions to Mars. And let's see, also a $10 billion investment into the Presidential Capital Stewardship Program to make Washington, D.C. safe, clean, and beautiful again, and much more beyond that as well. Conservative Daily News reporting France's National Bank removed and sold all of its remaining gold held by the U.S. Federal Reserve. Bank of France announced it netted 12.8 billion euros, that's about $14.8 billion, after it finishing pulling 129 tons of gold from the Federal Reserve Bank of New York and replacing it with higher quality gold stored in Paris. The French's central bank new stock of gold bars in Paris complies with the up-to-date international standards, according to Newsweek. The upgrade gradually occurred over several months, starting in July of 25, but it marked the first time in about 100 years that France did not keep any of its gold at New York City's federal branch. From the Daily Signal, the Artemis II crew, perhaps you've been monitoring that this week. They're on their way home after completing a record-breaking mission around the moon, but their ship's re-entry to Earth's atmosphere will be the most dangerous part yet. The Orion spacecraft set to splash down to the Pacific Ocean at approximately 8:07 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time today. That's just off the coast of San Diego. Spacecraft will re-enter Earth's atmosphere at approximately 25,000 miles per hour using a free return system. That's meaning that the crew are using the gravitational forces from the moon and Earth's orbit to slingshot back to Earth. 11 parachutes will deploy to further slow the capsule as it lands in the ocean about 60 miles off the California coast. NASA plans to rescue the astronauts with the help of the U.S. Navy and then pick up the crew members at sea, and the spacecraft will be tracked by Navy helicopter. The New York Post reports that the crew on Monday traveled the furthest ever into space. They broke the record set more than 50 years ago by Apollo 13. That record had been 248,655 miles away from Earth, and the crew broke that at a staggering 252,756 miles, and then began their journey back home. On Good Friday, and I'm looking at redstate.com, on Good Friday, NASA communicated with its astronaut, Victor Glover, who professes faith in Jesus Christ and prayed a beautiful and moving prayer before it was launched into space, reports Red State. So the NASA communications asked him whether he had any special message for Good Friday and the upcoming Easter Sunday. So he shared this response to the questioner.
You know, I don't have anything prepared. I'm glad you brought that up, though. I think these observances are important, and as we are so far from Earth and looking back at, the beauty of creation, I think for me, one of the really important personal perspectives that I have up here is I can really see Earth as one thing. And, when I read the Bible and I look at all of the amazing things that were done for us who were created, it's you have this amazing place, this spaceship. You guys are talking to us because we're in a spaceship really far from Earth, but you're on a spaceship called Earth that was created to give us a place to live in the universe, in the cosmos. I think maybe the distance we are from you makes you think what we're doing is special, but we're the same distance from you. And I'm trying to tell you, just trust me, you are special. In all of this emptiness, this is a whole bunch of nothing, this thing we call the universe. You have this oasis, this beautiful place that we get to exist together. I think as we go into Easter Sunday, thinking about, all the cultures all around the world, whether you celebrate it or not, whether you believe in God or not, this is an opportunity for us to remember where we are, who we are, and that we are the same thing and that we got to get through this together.
That was astronaut Victor Glover speaking from the spacecraft and in response to a question pertaining to Good Friday and the upcoming Easter. Well, the Freedom from Religion Foundation is calling out U.S. Secretary of Agriculture Brooke Rollins for sending an explicitly Christian devotional email, apparently to almost 100,000 USDA employees. The Freedom from Religion Foundation sent a letter to Secretary Rollins demanding that they refrain from using official communications to promote her personal religious beliefs in the future. The message was headlined, "Happy Easter, He is risen indeed." I'd just like to share with you what Secretary Rollins had sent out. Today we celebrate, it started out, "Happy Easter, He is risen indeed." Today we celebrate the greatest story ever told, the foundation of our faith and the abiding hope of all mankind. From the foot of the cross on Good Friday to the stone rolled away from the now empty tomb, sin has been destroyed. Jesus has been raised from the dead, and God has granted each of us victory and new life. And where there is life, risen life, there is hope. No matter the very real trials and hardships we face, fear and sin and death do not get the last word, because on Easter morning, hell took a body and discovered God. It took earth and encountered heaven. It took what it saw and was overcome by what it did not see. Now, that is reason to rejoice. And so, like the very first disciples to encounter our risen Lord in the upper room almost 2,000 years ago, this Easter, let us too be alive with hope, full of paschal joy, and confident in the mission each of us has been called for. Please know how amazed and grateful I am for the hard work each of you do to support our shared mission here at USDA. I hope that you and your loved ones have a truly blessed and happy Easter. May God continue to bless you, your families, and our exceptional country, one nation under God. That's sent out by Secretary Brooke Rollins, Freedom from Religion Foundation, outraged that the Secretary would do just that. Okay, from justthenews.com, the Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche on Tuesday announced the creation of a National Fraud Enforcement Division at the Department of Justice, marking a significant step in the Trump administration's efforts to crack down on misuse of public funds. There will be an additional 93 prosecutors in every district across the country devoted to the mission of combating fraud with the National Fraud Enforcement Division, he said. We currently have over 8,000 fraud matters underway. Daily Caller telling us that the Vice President's new anti-fraud task force has identified nearly $6.3 billion in government contracts that are going to potentially fraudulent businesses. From the Daily Signal, the Justice Department this week, wrapped up its healthcare fraud investigation in California, fraud in Nevada, saying it's recovered about $500 million. Florida Obamacare payments, an enrollment scheme for the Affordable Care Act that obtained $141.5 million in unwarranted subsidies. California pharmacy fraud, guilty in Medicaid scheme involving the submission of over $269 million in fraudulent claims, and in Nevada, COVID-19 claims and amounts of money that total up to like $98 million as the search for fraud continues. Back in a minute on Crosstalk.
The Bible follows the rise and fall of kingdoms and governments, covers millennia of ancient history, and reveals God's plan for humanity through powerful accounts that still speak today. In the hardcover book, Charting the Bible Chronologically, authors Tommy Ice and Ed Heinzen team up to provide readers a panoramic view of the events recorded in Scripture, all laid out in chronological order. This book takes you from the words "in the beginning" all the way to the New Jerusalem. With 40-plus color charts, you will see timelines of biblical history, pre-flood genealogy, Israel, overviews of major empires, the life of Christ, God's judgments, and a master fold-out chart of the entire Bible. It's a vital resource for new believers and Bible scholars alike. Charting the Bible chronologically. Available for a donation of $30 or more to VCY. Call 1-800-729-9829.
You're listening to Crosstalk on VCY America, a Friday News Roundup today. Our thanks to each of these stations that's carrying Crosstalk. And friends, as always, we encourage you to contact your local station, let them know how thankful you are for Crosstalk, and get behind and support your local Christian radio station. They provide the airtime for Crosstalk to be on the air, keeping you informed, so make sure that you get behind and support your local Christian radio station. Let's move on to the border-related issues. Department of Homeland Security and ICE and the Border Patrol announced that they have the 11th consecutive month of zero releases at the southern border, continuing the trend of historically low border crossings. With daily apprehensions down 95% from the previous administration, 14 consecutive months of fewer than 9,000 southwest border apprehensions, the border remains more secure than at any point in history, they report. ResistTheMainstream.com reporting an 18-year-old illegal alien being held on first-degree murder charges after prosecutors said he helped orchestrate the fatal shooting of a 15-year-old Miles Young in Greene County, Missouri. This is Jeffrey Archaga, 18 years old, arrested March 31st in Webb City, Missouri, following a 2-week search and remains in Greene County Jail without bond under a federal immigration detainer. He faces charges alongside another 18-year-old who was apprehended. Witnesses reported hearing, matter of fact, he was allegedly wearing a black ski mask, carried a Glock-style handgun, chasing this 15-year-old on foot and shooting him in the chest. Witnesses reported hearing the victim say, "I just don't want to die," before he was pronounced dead at Cox South Hospital, according to KY3. Friends, here again, this never should have happened. An illegal alien, 18 years old, shooting a 15-year-old in Missouri. Here is another situation. This from the Department of Homeland Security. They assisted the Fort Myers Police Department in tracking down and arresting Rolbert Wakim, a Haitian illegal alien accused of bludgeoning an innocent mom to death with a hammer, hitting her several times in the head at a gas station in Florida. This April 3rd. And yet you have people that are trying to stop ICE from doing their job. Let's see, the Gateway Pundit reporting Mississippi has just become the latest red state to take immigration enforcement into its own hands. The Mississippi Governor, Tate Reeves, expected to sign a legislation passing both chambers, but it makes illegal immigration a state crime and has backed the use of bounty hunters for deportations and signed legislation aimed at tightening voter citizenship verification. And friends, the protests continue up at City's Church in St. Paul, Minnesota. The agitation happened there January 18th. Another protester arrested this past Easter Sunday. We understand that a judge dropped the charges, but that they are appealing now to a district attorney's office to reinstate those charges. Let's hit another issue, and this is horrendous. Planned Parenthood has released, and I'm looking at lifenews.com, Planned Parenthood has released its annual report for 2025, and the figures are horrific. The new report from the nation's biggest abortion business shows that it killed a record 434,450 babies in abortions in its 2024-2025 fiscal year. That's an 8% increase from abortions reported the previous year. The nation's largest abortion company also received a record $832 million in taxpayer funding during the period, a 5% increase from prior years. Life News also pointed out for every adoption referral, Planned Parenthood makes, it also kills 143 babies in abortion. LifeNews.com reports that President Trump released his proposed budget that would again seek to block federal taxpayer dollars from flowing to Planned Parenthood. It would also reinforce longstanding protections against government funding of abortion. Life News also reporting that a federal judge has scolded the FDA over its decision to loosen safety restrictions on mailing the dangerous abortion pill mifepristone that has killed millions of babies and injured countless thousands of women. But the judge refused to immediately block the practice, instead pausing the case and giving the agency time to complete their review of the drug. Chemical abortion drugs kill innocent children, put mothers at risk, said Senator Bill Cassidy. Safeguards protecting against coercion, such as the in-person dispensing requirement, must be reinstated immediately. Friends, we need to just do away altogether with that FDA pill. It's designed to kill. It's designed to kill. Christian Post reporting on estimates released by Planned Parenthood's former research arm shows that abortion in the U.S. continues to rise despite restrictions. It's due to telehealth. According to Guttmacher Institute, he estimated 1.126 abortions were performed in the U.S., a slight increase from 2024. 3 states have advanced bills now to stop mail-in order abortion drugs: Mississippi, Tennessee, and Arizona legislatures. Life News also reporting, just imagine this, a parent is admitting on a podcast to stockpiling abortion pills for her 6-year-old daughter, stockpiling them for later use down the road. And Life News also reporting that David DeLayden has been dismissed. His case charges against him has been dismissed. He's the one who brought forth all the gruesome baby body parts for sale, videos that abortionists are engaged in doing. But this dismissal fulfills the terms of a January 2025 settlement in which California dropped all charges. Kansas for Life announces that Governor Laura Kelly line-item vetoed 2 pro-life provisions in the Kansas state budget: continued funding for the Pregnancy Compassion Awareness Program, and a measure ensuring Kansas taxpayer dollars are not used by abortion businesses in Kansas. In West Virginia, a pregnancy medical clinic is going on the road to reach women in areas without adequate access to maternity care. This is Women's Care Center in Parkersburg has obtained a mobile unit and taking it to serve the most rural counties in its region. And on the other end of life, Oregon's 2025 Death with Dignity Act report, LifeNews.com reports, shows a staggering number of people ended their lives under the state's assisted suicide last year. Oregon's 2025 reports show that a record 637 lethal prescriptions for assisted suicide were written last year. And Life News also pointing out that the Netherlands Times reported on March 26 there were 10,341 reported euthanasia deaths, representing 6% of all deaths. 6% of all deaths. Well, friends, we've seen matters that have taken, unfolded, like at Fort Hood, where it was an Islamic member of the military shooting and killing those in the military. I do want to point out that the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, announced that American service members will once again be allowed to carry personal firearms on U.S. military bases. Here's what he had to say.
Our great republic was founded on a simple yet bold idea. Our rights as citizens are not granted to us by government, but instead by God. 250 years ago, the Revolutionary War was fought to secure our God-given rights. The Second Amendment to our Constitution enshrines the right of all citizens to carry weapons to protect themselves, their families, and their fellow countrymen. The War Department's uniformed service members are trained at the highest and unwavering standards. These warfighters, entrusted with the safety of our nation, are no less entitled to exercise their God-given right to keep and bear arms than any other American. Our warfighters defend the right of others to carry. They should be able to carry themselves. Recent events like what happened at Fort Stewart, Holloman Air Force Base, or Pensacola Naval Air Station have made clear that some threats are closer to home than we would like. In these instances, minutes are a lifetime, and our service members have the courage and training to make those precious short minutes count. Before today, it was virtually impossible. Most people probably don't know this. It was virtually impossible for War Department personnel to get permission to carry and store their own personal weapons aligned with the state laws where we operate our installations. I mean, effectively, our bases across the country were gun-free zones. Unless you're training or unless you are a military policeman, you couldn't bring your own firearm for your own personal protection onto post. Well, that's no longer. The memo I'm signing today directs installation commanders to allow requests for personal protection to carry a privately owned firearm, with the presumption that it is necessary for personal protection. If a request is for some reason denied, the reason for that denial will be in writing and will explain in detail the basis for that direction. Again, the presumption is service members will be able to have their Second Amendment right on post. Not all enemies are foreign, nor are they all outside our borders. Some are domestic. Confirming your God-given right to self-protection is what I'm signing into action today.
And he signed it. Yep, he said, I'm proud to do so, and he signed it immediately after this address. From Liberty Counsel, Idaho Governor Brad Little recently signed a law that only allows municipalities to fly flags that are on the state's approved list. And so as a result, Boise has had to remove the rainbow LGBTQ pride flag from its city hall. Only flags that are American flags, state flags, official military flags, official Indian tribe flags, the POW/MIA flag, and assortment of other national and international flags on special occasions. Interesting clip here as well I want to play for you. This from the Western Journal. California's first partner is catching some major flack over her child-rearing habits. Jennifer Sibel Newsom, the wife of California Governor Gavin Newsom, boasted in a public appearance about deliberately giving her boys dolls to play with while distorting stories that she reads to them to change the sexes of the main characters. Here she is.
I've given our boys dolls, even if they tear the head off. I've given them dolls to learn that care and caregiving is not just an activity that's reserved for women, but that it's also an activity that is a responsibility of men. What I've done with both my daughters and my sons is if I'm reading a book and the protagonist is a male, I just change the he to a she. And it just normalizes for my sons in particular. I don't even just do it for my girls. I do it for my sons because I want them to see that women can be the center of a story, that women matter, that women are interesting. At the end of the day, we're all kind of like in this place in history maybe where we're recognizing what it is to ultimately deconstruct all these gender roles and ultimately be human. And that's exciting to me. So I'll just continue to kind of do my work and try and deconstruct all of these like limiting narratives about ultimately what it means to be human.
All about deconstructing. And I know there are aspirations to one day be the first lady or the first partner or the first person. I'm not sure what she would go by here in the United States of America. By the way, from the state of Wisconsin, Governor Evers yesterday signed a law opening the door to legal online sports betting in Wisconsin and urging the state's 11 tribes to pursue a model that will benefit all of them. Quick break here, and let's open our phone lines. If you'd like to comment on these or other current event stories, our number to Crosstalk, 800-733-9829. This is your chance to comment on either these stories or so much more that's happening in the news today, 800-733-9829. Back in a minute here on Crosstalk.
For the Worldview Report, I'm Brandon House. Our website is worldviewtube.com. President Trump on Resurrection Sunday put out a tweet. I didn't appreciate some of the language he used, but he did close it when talking about attacking Iran. Praise be to Allah. And many took that as mocking Islam. Tucker Carlson now has come out and condemned President Trump for doing just that, mocking Islam. But wait a minute. Tucker Carlson, does he not have a long history of mocking Christianity or allowing his guests to do so, claiming that things like the idea of the rapture or dispensationalism is somehow a heresy or made up or created, or that the covenants of God found in Genesis chapter 15 are not for today, somehow making God a liar. Tucker Carlson has no moral high ground by which to say someone should not mock someone else's faith. I think he's made a living doing that. I'm Brandon House.
One other story I want to quick get in here. This is from AFA Action, and pointing out that we just mentioned Governor Evers of Wisconsin. AFA Action is calling on Wisconsin parents and lawmakers to oppose Governor Evers' veto of a bill to protect children from hardcore pornography and illegal child porn. The legislation would have required pornographic websites to verify users were at least 18 years of age before accessing content that's obscene for children. The bill also forbids publishing or distributing obscene depictions of children online. The governor vetoed this. The governor of Wisconsin vetoed the legislation. AFA Action says we're shocked. We're shocked by this veto of a common-sense bipartisan bill. Websites for thousands of businesses, banks, insurance companies, hospitals, doctors require customers to enter their personal information online for identification purposes. This is no sound legal reason that porn websites should not require users to verify that they are adults. And they're calling upon people to contact even their legislators because a two-thirds vote would be needed to override the governor's veto. But to side with the pornography industry, it's rather appalling. Let's go to the phone lines here today on Crosstalk. The number is 800-733-9829. Jeff in Garland, Texas, you're on the air.
Good afternoon. I hope you got big plans for your weekend. I just was sharing with your screener. You're putting out some of the best articles I've heard from any news outlet in quite a long time. That story about the rescued airmen and what Pete had to say. I mean, that just kind of reinstores some of my confidence that maybe America will be around a couple hundred more years. I mean, I hope it wasn't embellished much, but the gentleman, the fact that, he knew his first priority, kudos to him. Also, the story regarding the technology and whatnot that the CIA, I mean, that's just mind-blowing. It's be interesting to see what else is out that way. Just one thing regarding Iran, and I hope this isn't inappropriate, but I just kind of wish Trump quit pussyfooting around, and we need to do something. We really need to put Iran in its place, one way, for once and for all. I can't believe that the Strait of Hormuz is, 12 ships a day, big deal,
Yeah, thank you, Jeff. Appreciate your call here today, and would encourage you to be in prayer for the Vice President and others represent the U.S. as they're over there here at this time. Thank you for the call. Carl in Lake Delton, you're on the air.
Yeah, Holy Spirit, God bless your ministry. Only 2% of our oil goes to the Strait of Hormuz. How come we're being charged so much more? I could agree to 2%, but it's gone up exponentially. That's the one thing I don't like about President Trump is making a deal with big oil.
Well, it's a head scratcher as to, it's just something happens momentarily and the oil skyrockets and it says, well, it's going to take weeks before it's going to come down. And it's like, it's kind of interesting. If we are self-sufficient as a nation as it relates to oil, why such severe increases? Thank you, Carl. You're probably not the only one wondering that same thing. Commenting on the news today, let's go to Dave in Phoenix, Arizona. Dave, you're on the air.
Thanks, Jim. I was just had a comment about your Psalm 20, verse 7, that the Lord our God, his name is actually Yahweh, and that's recorded 6,800 times in the Old Testament. And the other thing that confirms that is we don't say hallelujah, we say hallelujah. So the first syllable is Yah. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go next to Eddie in Glasgow, Kentucky. You're on the air, Eddie.
Hey, Jim, thank you for taking my call. One thing I've noticed in America is that we don't have no standards no more. I mean, the water's got to be muddied up. You can't get your pronouns right. Second Amendment, and even voting and the political realm just can't have no standards. And I believe we need to build up the bulwarks, and I believe we need to get back to the standards that raised this country up. We got an anniversary coming this year, and America's so far from what it started out to be, we need to find our way back. But God bless you, brother, doing a great work up there.
God bless you, Eddie. Thanks for calling. John in Williamstown, New Jersey, you're on the air.
Hey, I wanted to comment on the governor of Wisconsin, which you had just mentioned about vetoing that bill.
Yeah.
Do you happen to know, that's the first I've heard of that altogether, and even I don't know anything about this governor. Obviously this governor has a pretty liberal background. Do you know any more about him? That's really all I wanted to ask. Thank you.
Yeah, indeed he does. Has a very liberal background, a very staunch supporter of LGBT, flying the so-called gay or pride flag or progress flag above the Capitol, very much in favor of killing unborn babies in the womb, advocate of abortion. He also, and it's so ironic because last year he declared 2025 to be the year of the kid, and this is legislation that would protect children, and yet he had to veto that legislation. Alice in Arkansas, you're on the air.
Oh, thank you so much for taking my call. My heart is aching again. The Bible said that the wicked shall be turned into hell, and all the nations that forget God. And from what you said today, we continue to forget God. We want death for the assisted suicide, and the horrible abomination of the death of the innocent. Oh, we need the Spirit of God to convict men of their sin. We really need a revival in this nation. I am praying for God's will to be done over in the meetings concerning Iran. God turns the king's heart. I'm asking him to turn the hearts of all those that are involved there. It's so wonderful to be able to trust in God, to know that you belong to him in these evil, evil days.
Yeah. Thank you, Alice. And let me just close the program with the way we opened it today from Psalm 20, verse 7. Some trust in chariots and some in horses, but we will remember the name of the Lord our God. Friends, I trust you keep God in your thoughts, that you keep your heart right before him as well, that you know Jesus Christ as your own personal Lord and Savior. Our time is gone. Thanks for joining us today on Crosstalk. And by the way, it's Friday. The Lord's Day is coming, and trust you'll be in a Bible-believing, Bible-teaching local church. Thanks for listening.
You've been listening to Crosstalk via satellite and the internet from VCY America. Views expressed may or may not be those of this station. For a CD of today's program, send a donation of $6 or more to VCY Take Ministry, 3434 West Kilbourne Avenue, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 53208, or download by RSS or podcast from crosstalkamerica.com. And join us again for Crosstalk.